Would you like me to pick a word out
Oh,
of my
please
can of
do.
words for you? Okay, cool. I
Also,
thought you
while you're doing that, I just want to
Yeah.
say hats off for a fantastic room topic, title, draws people into the room. Plus, like, I just love how it's running. I like the flavor of the room. Just hats off to you, sir.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, this is actually the first room the in this club. So I just want to make sure everybody rinses off before they get into the hot tub because um
Yeah, otherwise
it's
you get the gross, like, oily film on there after a while. It's like, ew.
yeah, totally. Phosphates. That's that's uh that's the name of the game.
Yeah,
David, you're going to throw me for a loop and be
temperature.
like,
The
okay,
water is
define
perfect.
emergence. The
Uh
water is perfect in here, absolutely.
it's 101 degrees. Let me know if it's too hot. I'll turn it down a little bit, but it's about, I don't know, I think it's still freezing here in Olympia, so it's a good temperature. But yeah, let me know. All right. So Daniel, your word out of the can of words is proof. 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 The idea is you can either define it, tell us what it means to you, or talk about it in some way if you'd like.
Yeah, so I think when I think about the word proof, I think of a couple of related terms, first of all, like evidence or justification or reasons. And I think proof is a step above all of those other things that I just listed. Because, for instance, eyewitness testimony is accepted as evidence in the court of law. Is it reliable in terms of proof? In my view, absolutely not. Like, humans can be easily fooled into thinking that they saw something that they did not actually see. Depending on how far back in their memory that event occurred and how many times they've thought about it and rehashed it in their brains or retold the story, that every time you do that or re-remember some occurrence in your life, your brain actually re-encodes that memory and changes it slightly, which is why your grandpa's story gets better every time he tells it. Like that's just a real thing that's been factually backed up. Yet we would still accept eyewitness testimony as evidence. So to me, proof is something that is irrefutable, something on the level of mathematics, where there is only one right answer, and any other evaluation of the equation or of the inputs and the operator that occurs can cannot be true unless it matches the output that you produced with your proof. If your proof is true, 100% of the time, the same inputs with the same operation occurring will produce the same outputs. And if a proof is not true, then it is open to some sort of given or some sort of input fluctuation, or it just may not be a true statement whatsoever. You may have made the assumption that Daniel Shower is the most amazing shot in the gun with a gun in the world because every time you look at a target that he shoots at, it's dead bullseye 100% of the time. If you don't know that I draw the bullseye after I fire the gun, then you would be very impressed by that. If you conversely know that I draw the bullseye after I draw the gun, that's not at all convincing.
This brings us full circle to the first word in the room, justice. Can you have justice in a world where the legal system is not reliable because of stuff uh, like Daniel said, that evidence is not reliable anymore? There's one more argument for that.
Yeah, we're back in the courtroom now. And I guess what I'm hearing Daniel say is that there's like this hierarchy of what we would need to determine if something's likely the case. And it sounds like proof is at the top of the hierarchy, and then under that is evidence, whether it be reliable or not. And then as we go down, uh, is that Is that kind
Yeah.
of a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think the hierarchy I laid out off the top of my head was something like proof to evidence to justification slash reasons slash just anecdotes. This is just my personal experience sort of deal.
How is this going to affect human behavior now that we have cameras on us almost all the time? Are we going to be more cautious, more alert, and try to? Because I think, like what I saw in myself many years ago was I could be cheeky. I could kind of even, not on a completely conscious level, manipulate my memories and say, I remember this, or like, I've heard this example before, the one that Daniel you were sharing, um, that in a court of law they're actually changing their assessment of experiential or witness testimony to more to more, I don't know, to better ways of measuring this. And I'm wondering how our behavior is going to be affected by being able, having Google. They can call out our lies quickly. They
Hmm.
can just show us a recording and stuff.
I mean, this is something, a problem in the real world that I'm actually focused on as part of a startup opportunity that I'm working on and trying to shore up the digital chain of custody for like police body camera footage and things like that, and knowing whether or not it's trustworthy, is unaltered from the point of capture and things like that. Um, and it is incredibly true that um, as cameras become more prevalent, that human behavior is changing. But I also think that it's true that what we observe as like dashboard cameras became quite pervasive in law enforcement agencies in the United States in the 90s. We saw a sharp decrease in incidents of like police brutality for a very short time. And then the behavior was, or the experience of having that camera being always on was normalized, and there was a regression to the mean. And that's across the board, not just police brutality, but also all the things, all the reasons why police officers would want there to be a dash cam so they can prove that they weren't the person that shot first and things like that. So there was a correction in human behavior when they realized they were being monitored, and then a regression to the mean of normal human behavior, because even under knowing circumstances where we're being monitored by Big Brother 100% of the time, we will eventually revert back to just living our lives, like we did with COVID, for instance, and mask mandates, as we roll those back.
But the reversal in terms of police behavior wasn't that all of a sudden they were being monitored 100% of the time or whatever, or Big Brother was watching them all the time. It's that Big Brother was watching them, and then there were no consequences for the behavior. Um, and so I think that's the huge difference between um, the police and cameras and just regular folks in cameras. Um, and it's also very difficult to reprogram human nature, right? Because we've had uh, video camera recording capable phones for what, like 10, 15 years now? And most of our behavior is still the same. We just either choose not to document what we're doing, or we do it anyway, right? Like, what was the last team that won something and then part of a city burned down? Like, that's never going to stop. There's just more people get arrested afterwards because someone recorded it and put it up on YouTube.
Can I speak up real quick on proof?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
That term is, it's got multiple definitions, and I use it quite often. And I had to take a second to do a Google search to make sure I was defining the word properly. When I say I need proof, I'm saying I need the evidence to be incontrovertible, meaning that I'm unable to keep believing this thing or unable to believe this thing still based on the evidence. So for me, it's when the proof becomes incontrovertible, and I am forced to either admit this thing is false or forced to admit this thing is true. That's what when I say I need proof, that's what I mean by that term.
Is proof subjective?
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean we've had the internet as a mass market thing for also about 15 years, and I've argued with plenty of people where I present to them facts, and I quickly learned that facts don't matter in in the face of a massive emotional connection to your belief. And you see this sort of across the board on whether it be different political sides or religions, right? Like, um, how many times have we talked to people in Clubhouse where they argue with us tooth and nail that evolution's not real, and that that Einstein's theories are just a hypothesis from their perspective, and that literally the last 120 years of innovation are just vaporware to them. So proof only matters to people who care about proof.
I would say even further. I think proof only matters to people who care about truth.
Yeah,
If you care more about being comfortable living in your little bubble, what do you care about truth? Fuck your facts. I'm comfortable.
totally. I agree with that. But that's why, like, even though the theory of evolution has been established science for many, many, many decades now, there's still people that are like, I didn't come from a monkey, right? even with the overwhelming amount of evidence. So
If
it's
evolution is true, why is nothing evolving today, atheist?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Haha, got you
I,
there. They're still
I, I,
monkeys.
I like that southern accent you're using, Ryan.
Thank you. I mean, like, I did a job in Atlanta, and I sort of went through the South, and my interpretation of a Southern accent is one, really way off, but two, I also found that even though there's the sort of concept of Southern hospitality, it always has a hint of violence behind it, depending on who you're talking to. So, like, if I'm talking to this really awesome dude that I met who owns a barbecue joint in Atlanta and drives around with his truck, and he's got his giant photo of his face on it. He's very much a Southern person, right? But he's coming from the oppressed side, and so his Southern hospitality, quote unquote, is genuinely honest, right? Because he's coming from a very different way of interacting with people. But then there are plenty of white folk, older, conservative white folk, that always had a hint of violence in everything they said. So it's like, okay, well, it is what it is.
Mm, I want to just speak briefly on the idea of proof being subjective, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, go ahead. You're next in the can,
Oh yeah, I'm looking
if you'd
forward
like,
to
after
the
you're done.
word as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really very much a pragmatic kind of way of looking at proof, and I like it because then one can consider even with two people that both believe in Einstein's theory of relativity, um, one person can just say, well, I'm not a mathematician, but you are, and I trust you. And that's enough proof for me from his subjective point of view. And he then, for the rest of his life, lives in full faith of that theorem. And the other man or woman, the other person, um, says, well, I'm actually a mathematician, and I'm going to look up all of the math that Einstein did, um, and I will understand all of the math first and go through all of these equations so that I have this full mathematical understanding, and I can follow all of the reasoning Einstein had historically to come to this conclusion. And at that point, this individual says, okay, I have seen irrefutable proof that this theorem is something I believe in, and I will henceforth not doubt this.
Yeah, I've come to not use the word proof unless it's in a mathematical context because of all the different views people have on the word proof. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, some people use feelings as proof.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's, the first man or person was, he felt he could trust his friend, the mathematician, and the mathematician, he felt he could trust the math. And there we go.